My name is Dhruv Baker, and I'm on a mission to discover the very best of Croatian cuisine. One of the mottos of this wonderful city is the city that flows, mainly because of the 12 underground streams, but figuratively a reference to their general attitude on life. The river Rijeka is symbolically important because prior to 1947, it divided Italy from the former Yugoslavia. It's mind-boggling to think that this was part of Italy less than 70 years ago. Rijeka's market really is a treasure, each stall bursting with the freshest spring produce. I wish I could take all of this with me, but unfortunately I have to leave as Rijeka awaits, so I buy a few ingredients and head off. This morning, I'm treating myself to a long, lazy breakfast at the Jadran Hotel, which has the most gorgeous views over Kvarner Bay and is situated in one of the beautiful residential neighbourhoods. From here, I've got a fantastic panoramic view of the area. I can see much of the Kvarner Bay. Behind me, I can see Lovran, Opatija, the Istrian Peninsula, and some of the islands. I can see Cres and Krk. So this has actually given me a much better understanding of the local geography, and now I kind of understand how it all fits in. And actually, just over my right shoulder, you can see the port, which is a little clue as to the importance not only historically, but also to this present day of shipbuilding in Rijeka. This isn't my usual choice for breakfast, but one I could easily get used to. A light pancake with scampi and wild asparagus first. Light, but delicious, and something I haven't had yet. Then I have a dish of red onion, orange, fennel and anchovies. I don't think I'd cook this for breakfast, but as a light lunch or a starter, this would be perfect. I'll definitely be borrowing this recipe. This is the ex-governor's palace, which is now Rijeka's Maritime Museum. Built in 1896, when Rijeka was ruled directly from Budapest. Rijeka was handed to Hungary by Austria in 1868. It was designed by Elias Hausmann, the greatest Hungarian architect of his time, who also designed the Parliament building in Budapest. I'm having a walk along the sea wall with Sandra from the Rijeka tourist community, who knows pretty much everything to know about Rijeka and its history. The sea wall was built between 1872 to 1888 as part of a massive redevelopment and expansion of the port. So all throughout history, I mean, dating back to then, and then obviously as one of the main or the principal port for what was the former Yugoslavia.
Yeah, actually, even until the beginning of the World War I, Rijeka, back then Fiume, was the fourth largest port on the Mediterranean, the 8th biggest port in Europe. We had weekly connection between Rijeka and New York.
And actually, that reminds me of that fascinating story about that tragic night of the Titanic, but there's actually a really important story for Rijeka. I was hoping you could tell me a bit more
yes,
about that particular story.
My pleasure. So the Cunard line, who was operating the connection between Rijeka and New York, so Carpathia was one of their boats, steamboats, and they came first to help Titanic. And most of the crew were from Rijeka or Rijeka surroundings. And one of the crew members, we know his name, Josip Car, he brought a souvenir from that night. He brought a life vest from Titanic, and that life vest is nowadays kept in our Maritime Museum. So there are only 5 life vests from Titanic left, 2 in Canada, 2 in the United States, and 1 is here in the port of Rijeka.
Wow. Gonoba Fiume is a popular restaurant situated near the fish market and is owned and run by the charismatic and wonderfully generous Nena, who has invited us for lunch. First course is a delicious fish soup made with skate wings, carrots and a delicate clear fish broth. Next is a platter of whitebait, langoustine or scampi, fried squid and a local speciality of whole, uncleaned, grilled squid, all served with blitva, Swiss chard and potatoes. And I thought at lunch you could tell me more about Rijeka, but less about the tangibles, you know, because I said when we first arrived that there's this very, very different feel here in Rijeka. It's almost like there's there's lots more evidence of artists and musicians, and there's much more that culture of music and art, and it seems to infiltrate everywhere within life here. There seems to be a different feel, a different tempo, a different speed of life here.
Yeah, let's say that we are that we like to think of ourselves as being different than others in Croatia, of course, due to our different historical background.
Yes.
And that our impression is like live and let live.
Live and let live, absolutely. And I still find it almost impossible to believe that Rijeka came under, part of it, under Italian rule. In kind of living memory of my parents, anyway.
But this is like, you know, in this town, for example, in one family, we have a member that was born in Austria-Hungary. Then we have a member that was born in Italy, and then in Yugoslavia, and in Croatia. So this is...
and it could have been in the same house?
The same house.
So it's six?
6 different states.
And despite all of that, or however it is, Rijekans are still Rijekans. After lunch, we head into the hills overlooking Rijeka, Dutursat. From here, you can see the whole city and get a real sense of perspective, especially how the river has featured so prominently as a boundary in the past. Up here, 138 meters above sea level, there is the imposing fort, Tursatska Gradina, originally owned by the Liburnians and then the Romans, and after that the Croatian nobility. It was nearly completely destroyed by a massive earthquake in 1750 and was rebuilt by Count Lavel Nijan. Today, it houses a museum and is a popular venue for music and theatre, and a vibrant bar and cafe which offers the city's residents a bit of respite from the scorching summer heat. These colourful and quite scary characters, or zametski zvončari, are protected by UNESCO as part of Croatia's intangible heritage, and they symbolise scaring away evil spirits while ushering away winter and heralding the arrival of spring. Once I've recovered from the sensory overload of the trip, it's time for me to put those ingredients from the market to good use. When it's hot and sunny, there are a few recipes I keep going back to time and time again, and this gazpacho is exactly one of those. It's very, very straightforward, but the key to it is having the freshest and best ingredients, and that's exactly what I found in the market in Rijeka. So I'm going to take you through the process. The first thing we need to do is prepare our vegetables. I'll start by chopping an onion. Now, I've already chopped some tomatoes, but I'll just do another couple. And this was the inspiration for the dish. When I was in the market yesterday, I walked past the stall, I smelt those tomatoes, and I immediately knew gazpacho had to be the recipe for today. Next, red peppers, again from the market. So, peppers as well. I'll just start putting all our vegetables in here. Cucumber. I've peeled it already. Now, traditionally, if you're making a gazpacho, you put all the vegetables, all the bread, all the ingredients in, and you leave it overnight, but we haven't really got time for that. And I think it's going to keep a much fresher flavour if we just do it this way. Cucumber. And just to help it along, what I've got is some tomato puree. I've just taken the juice from a tin of tomatoes. I see one of them snuck in there as well. That's not a problem at all. Now, I quite like garlic, so I'm going to use 3 cloves. And it's raw, so it's going to be quite a strong garlic flavour. I can get rid of that, and we can start blending the soup together. So I've got a blender here. And it happens in 2 stages. The first thing we need to do is make a sort of paste using the garlic, the bread, some olive oil and egg yolks. The egg yolks also are entirely up to you. You can leave those out. Cloves of garlic in, roughly tear up our bread. Tiny splash of olive oil to start that going. And then we'll add a little bit more once we've got a uniform mixture there. And now we'll just add these bit by bit. Don't overload the blender. So we'll probably put in maybe 1/3 of the tomatoes. And some of the other bits as well. That should be plenty for now. And now I'm completely happy with that. So all I need to do is serve that in a bowl. I'm going to serve this just as a very simple, very fresh, very clean starter, but what's really lovely with this is a little piece of grilled fish. You could add a side salad with that, but I think it's so full of flavour, it's so refreshing that you don't need anything else other than a splash of this fantastic Croatian olive oil.